Okay. We'll start by a salute to the flag. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Boland,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Here.
Commissioner McGrahan,
Here.
Commissioner Duncan,
Here.
Commissioner Betts,
Here.
Chair Connolly, alternate Commissioner Don Rust, alternate Commissioner Bradley, alternate Commissioner Ritter, alternate Commissioner Shepherd. Thank you.
Okay, sounds like we have a quorum. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Looks like the only item on the consent agenda are the approval of the March 7th meeting minutes. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to those meeting minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. We can just do a voice vote. Is that correct? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, notice of public hearings. And we will turn this over to 3.1. Who handles this? Is that all
As I
right?
figure out my mic,
Good deal.
lights off, right? Good morning,
Review and
Commissioners.
Consideration proposed budget.
Thank you. This is the 24-25 fiscal year proposed budget in front of you. We met with the Budget Committee committee last week, which included Mr. Betts, Mr. McGrahan, and Mr. Johnson. And Mr. Connolly was unable to make it to the meeting. What the committee heard the budget, and I'm just going to give you the upshot of it, the snapshot, and then those folks can talk if they want to about it. The good news is we are going to have our budget pretty much static till next year, and this means no additional apportionment increases to our member agencies. So all of those costs will be held firm, which is usually the biggest issue we face is making sure that our member agencies pay as the minimal that they can and still improve our budget. The other big piece that I really want to point out is two parts. This budget has allowed us to move forward with fully satisfying our reserve fund. Some of you may recall years ago, excuse me, that we adopted a reserve fund that was going to be 50% of the total budget, and we would incrementally put $25,000 a year into it until we got to that magical number. Due to our thriftiness in operating this agency, I'm happy to say that we, with our fund balance, have been able to fully fund the reserve fund this year. So from this point forward, as you look on the adopted or the proposed budget, under line item, it's on the second page of the actual, the first page of the budget. At the bottom under appropriations, you will see appropriations for reserve, which normally would be 25,000. That now this year is 0. And as long as we can maintain a appropriate fund balance, then we will continue to leave that blank. So that's actually a $25,000 a year savings in a sense that we are no longer budgeting for. So we are well ahead in our schedule to fully fund that. And what's really important about that is Mr. Brown can attest is LAFCOs get sued around the state, and it doesn't take much of a lawsuit to burn through a few $100,000 very quickly, as all of you know from your agencies. So this is a huge a bonus for us, and I'm very proud that we were able to accomplish that quicker than what we have anticipated. Other than that, the other piece of the budget that's, I think, equally important deals with reserves. As some of you have been around long enough know, we fully fund our liabilities. I'm sorry, I said reserves, but I meant liabilities. So that means all of our accrued leave balances that get carried by staff, that money gets set aside. We fully fund our PERS account every single year. We pay up front. So we're not running a liability for PERS, which I don't know if there's another agency in the county that can say that. And we're only 4 people, so let's not give ourselves too big a pat on the back. But the reality is we managed our money well, and we've been able to do that. And we also maintain all of our, like I said, the balances. So our fund balance allows us to fully fund our liabilities. So the budget in front of you today is a very modest increase from last year. And you can see from the bottom, the total budget is 883, which is only a $2,000 increase from the prior year. I can go through line by line. I don't know if you want me to do that. And, but at this point, I think if you have questions for me directly, that's great. I'm happy to answer them. If not, I'll turn it over to any of the subcommittee if they want to speak to any of this.
So maybe you said this, but, and I didn't hear it, but what is the reserve up to?
The reserve right now is at $425,000,
425.
which is roughly 50% of our budget.
Okay. Thank you.
So
So if we're up to 900,000, we just raise that accordingly in the next budget.
we would, every year, we would look at that if we're in whatever that difference is. If we can fund it without a budget increase through fund balance from, previous years,
Right.
we will do that. If we cannot, you'll see a line item back in there again with an actual number in it for reserve fund where we contribute more to it. But I can tell you right now is, my goal has always been to keep this budget pretty much capped out where it is. I don't expect in the years to come, unless something dramatically changes in our responsibilities in state law. I suspect that after I'm long gone, that these folks will move on and this budget will stay pretty much stable. I'm really proud that we've been able to stabilize this budget to a point where no given year is probably going to cause us any particular problem on a financial basis.
Well, I'm very happy with that reserve. I mean, that's not typical for government, so thank you.
You're welcome. No,
Whoever
you can
puts that
thank
in
former public member, alternate public member Greg Steele. It was
Right.
his idea to do this years ago, and it was a good one.
Yes.
So having said that, again, if
Anything from the subcommittee, or the budget committee?
Just that we spent a good, well over an hour talking about the budget. We went over each item and I
Yeah,
think the
it's
budget's
always a
really
quick
good.
meeting, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been on that committee before, so, Steve does a great job. The whole staff does a great job. I mean, it is unheard of to have a reserve of 50% of your total budget. So, I'm not sure any of the rest of our jurisdictions have that, so.
well, again, our budget's small to begin with.
Oh, but still,
Yeah.
it's very, very good. Now, I would have a question, maybe this is a stupid question. Is that money in some kind of interest bearing account?
It's all sitting in the county treasury.
Okay,
So
which
it's
gets
interest bearing, but not a whole
how
lot of
much?
interest.
Okay,
Which is I'm glad you brought that up. If you let me elaborate for a moment. Actually, Shannon and I were just speaking about this yesterday as a path moving forward, and we did not necessarily present this to the budget committee because, well, we just kind of thought about it. But looking at our investment possibilities is we are obviously missing out on opportunity funds dealing with what interest rates are today versus what the county treasury returns on their amounts of money. And this is not a ding on them at all. They're managing a much bigger portfolio for different reasons, but we believe that we could probably look at investing that reserve fund. And I'll just give you one snapshot. If we took $500,000 and put it in a 5% bearing CD, guaranteed money, we would end up with a $25,000 interest payment at the end of the year. Because we are fully funded at the beginning of our fiscal year, unlike the rest of you who get tax tranches as you get twice a year to fill we get all of our revenue up front from our member agencies. So we start with that amount of money, meaning we have more flexibility in what we can do with it. So rather than putting it in the treasurer, we have talked about the idea of maybe asking a couple of you to serve on an ad hoc type of a committee. Maybe Mr. Betts and Mr. McGrean, since they were involved in the budget, would want to continue. But we would like to look at pursuing an outside investment possibility for some portion of our fund balance that we keep in reserve, just so that we can earn some reasonable expectation on our money. And where I'm headed with this, and just to give you a full picture, is our lease in our current facility. We had a 10-year lease. We signed another 10-year lease for where we are. The building has issues. The office location has some issues, and I've shared this with some of you, but part of it is we can put that money in investment. We could then, when our lease comes up in 2 more years, we would like to begin looking at the possibility of seeing what other options are out there in terms of buildings for office space. Not only could we probably get it at a lesser cost than what we're paying now, we might be able to get something that maybe has a different set of circumstances than the one we're in now. It's not the greatest place, and it's gotten worse over the last few years in terms of its just location and the the characters that come walking through our building. Everybody has that, I get it, but
I haven't walked through.
Yeah.
we see you on the camera.
I
come in our engine and lock the doors. So I don't want to get out ahead of myself, but I just want to give you a heads up that we're proactively thinking about a different way to approach this that gives us even more sustainability moving forward. And if we end up looking at an office relocation, perhaps that revenue earned through that interest that we could gain over the next 2 years would be that seed of money that we could use for any potential office relocation or change as well. So what I want to do is just I don't want to be out of the way of earning something that we could be earning. It's opportunity money and we should exercise it. So it's not a decision for today, but it is something that we have talked about, and we will talk more with Mr. Brown about any legal indications, but I think it's entirely doable. And it makes sense, and it's not money, and we would never put that money at risk, mind you. These would be investments where the principal is protected. And we're not always going to have that luxury because interest rates aren't going to stay at 5.5% like they have been. They will eventually drop, but in the next couple of years, there's no reason why we should not try to explore that. So,
The thing you'll find is you're very bound to what investments you can do. We have a little pot of money up in paradise, and I'm very depressed at how little we can do because the state binds you. So right now it's better than it was 2 years ago, absolutely. And it's up some, and we're trying to extend that as far as we can, but you can't just go get a CD and say, well, it's covered, and it doesn't work that way. And I wish it did.
I appreciate that comment.
It's very depressing.
Yeah, I mean, we also, I would agree with Greg. We also have a pot of money, and if you only get 1 or 2, 3% interest, it just doesn't do.
Be happy.
Be happy.
Yeah.
But I do say, why don't we agendize this topic for a future meeting?
Can do.
Because I think it's something that it would be prudent to look into. And I mean, if we could even get 5% on the money we've got now, we'd never have to put money away as a line item into the future.
Right.
So,
I'll put it on.
but like Greg says, chances of doing it is probably slim, but we can try.
So
But you may be a different public agency than the rest of us.
we like to think we are.
Yes.
I'd like to say with the budget committee,
Characters
we
that
we
go through
talked
there, doesn't it?
extensively as a budget committee on this very subject.
let's-
That's why,
Let's get you a microphone just in
that's
case.
why our meeting
Okay.
went an hour. But anyway.
Good.
And there was a suggestion made to staff to pursue the possibility of a certain investment
Mhm.
organization called CLASS. I think you're familiar with that, Greg. And the interest bearing on that, if LAFCO is an eligible agency, they could possibly
Mhm.
invest in that and get a better return.
And that
I
is
believe-
available day to day.
Yep.
Yes, it is, right?
All right. Any other discussion? We're kind of getting a little off topic here, a little bit, just a little bit. We're still talking about money anyway, but any other questions? Comments? Okay. Any public comment on this item, budget item? Nobody in the public wants to know about our budget. Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll
Budget.
motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Roll call and vote on that. Close enough. Okay.
Commissioner Bolin,
Hi.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Aye.
Commissioner McGreehan,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan. Yes. Commissioner Betts.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, passes
And-
unanimously.
And Steve, this is coming back to us for final approval.
Yes, it comes back for final approval next month. And
Oh, okay, this is not
Perhaps at
final
that-
approval. Okay.
at that point, perhaps I'll put the item on that you suggested, Mr. Kimmelshoe. And
Yeah, let's
we can
talk about
talk
it.
more.
Hey, it doesn't hurt to talk, right?
Well, it depends.
Yeah, I'm sure we all have relatives
kids,
that
right?
are
There's
relatives that
that.
are financial advisors, but anyway, we'll move on from that. I'll probably get myself in trouble here the more I talk. So let's see here. Any other items removed from consent agenda, which are none, right? Correct? Public comment. Any public comment from the public? Bo? Larry? Larry?
No.
Anything? Anything at all?
Anything.
Yeah, okay. Okay, reports. We'll move on to item number 6.1, executive officers report. Always interesting. What do you got going?
Well, there's some things going. first item there under administration, Mr. Betts and Mr. Rust, both our public members are due up for reappointment. And and so we will schedule that what we do is we put a notice in the newspaper and then we ask people to submit an application, which what they both did prior. We take all those applications in and then ultimately I present them to the commission and then the commissioners get to determine who the public members are. So it doesn't go back to anybody but you. So hopefully they both indicated to me that they both will resubmit applications to continue in service, which is great. But that'll come back to your agenda and you'll formally appoint one of them. And this won't be until our June meeting. So I just wanted to give you a heads up, but that's in the work. So I don't know whether, sometimes we get, some people apply and sometimes we get nothing. So I don't know.
How many years was our previous public person? Mr.
You really wanna
Leverage?
know?
Was it 50 years?
I don't, it was
Steve, are you up
40
for that or?
I don't think I'll make that much.
Okay,
No.
just not-
I would have had to start when I was like
Yeah.
30 or more.
We're hoping Mr. Betts lives to 120.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was what, 47 years, I think was the
Long
total
time.
number.
incredible.
1973, somebody do the math.
Yeah, I think of him often, so.
Yeah, and he
Yeah.
still comes up in many conversations I have with people. Oh, did
Right.
he used to? And I do miss him dearly.
Mhm.
Not to say that we do not appreciate Mr. Betts.
Nobody can replace him.
No.
So we'll get that underway. The first item on here is the Gridley Area Water Districts. Actually, I'm going to let Shannon tell you the update on this because she had just met with them this week.
Yeah, it's not included in this report, but I did meet with the water districts. And when I say water districts, I'm referring to drainage and reclamation districts on the west side of the county. We had a discussion to further this letter agreement that we've brought to you in the past and just how the water districts, drainage and irrigation can work cooperatively with the city of Gridley as projects come in and Gridley begins to grow or continues to grow. And perhaps including the city of Biggs in this conversation and sort of any water district on the west side that collects and drains water. They're very much affected by development that is occurring in Gridley and Biggs. And so that needs to be a cooperative effort. We did have a meeting earlier this week that was very productive. Those water districts are very on board and full steam ahead with this agreement. And so I would imagine that in the next couple weeks, you'll see this agreement come before you. And then the various boards and commissions of those districts will consider the agreement and it'll be a pretty comprehensive agreement that could potentially be very effective in the development as it moves forward.
Congratulations on that. I think that's been long needed. So,
And just Shannon did bring this up, but I did have the opportunity to talk to the city manager for Biggs this week. And he also understands that this letter is in the works and he has actually committed to putting this in front of his council as early as possible and supports Biggs also signing on to the letter. So this will be a huge sort of ground shift towards giving these districts a real say in how the development occurs. And you all know it's flat and there's very few options.
Yes.
So this is super important. And I give Shannon a lot of kudos for pulling all this together and getting those guys to consolidate around this idea. Moving on, City of Biggs, there's not a lot to add to that. I'm in constant conversation, it seems like, with Biggs about moving towards the highway and various things are in flux. There's, this, Mr. Kimashu, but there's landowners who perhaps their expectations are a little unrealistic. But nonetheless, Biggs continues to pursue all angles to get out to the highway. And I assume sooner or later, something's going to happen. Some trigger's going to get pulled. But right now we're just there to provide support to the city doing so. And they've included us in all their conversations. So we're thrilled. Moving on to the one last item, it's not new today on this agenda, but the county service area reorganization. Shannon, do you want to talk to them about where we're at with that?
We had, again, another very productive conversation this week with Public Works Director Josh Pack and his staff who are working on they are full steam ahead on cleaning up these CSAs, whether it be through some sort of reorganization to consolidate like type services into one CSA or dissolving districts that no longer are wanted or needed by by the citizens who live in them. And so we had a very productive conversation, walking them through the dissolution process, what our role as LAFCO can be moving forward. They have some pretty good and progressive ideas on what they can do to simplify their list of CSAs. It's just overwhelming for them. They don't have the budgets, they don't have the staff to manage the CSAs. And so while we don't actually have a plan in place, we didn't leave with a plan in place from that meeting. They have some big ideas that they're going to be moving forward with, and perhaps to the Board of Supervisors to get some direction. And they now know that we are a partner that want to work with them, because we also want to clean up the CSAs and consolidate and streamline them as much as we can. So they are actively and excitedly working on this CSA project over there. So
No, I would concur with that, and thank you for working with Josh Pack and Public Works. Many of the CSAs are underfunded. Some don't do the job that they were supposed to do originally. I've stated that as long as I'm on that board, I'll never approve another CSA. At least my vote. There's gonna be several that go out for 218 elections
Yeah.
to increase the assessment on the members of those CSAs. So it's gonna be interesting, and believe me, if we can dissolve some of them, we will.
yeah, they're
I think
doing
we
a
have
real,
over 30,
60.
what?
Oh, it's special district or
Yeah,
CSAs.
maybe more.
There are currently 60
60,
even.
that's right, yeah.
60 CSAs.
yeah, they're doing a really good job as they do these 218 elections in public education and outreach and providing information to the folks who live in these CSAs so that they understand the importance of funding them appropriately so that they can continue to receive the service. And they're prioritizing the CSAs that provide sewer service. Essentially, they need to get those
Which is the
up
most
to
important,
up,
right.
and then their fire protection CSAs will probably be their next priorities, because some of those are in pretty dire need.
Yeah, see, the one that's most interesting is the CSA in Sterling City is the
Mhm.
sewer CSA. As you well know, the sewer system failed. They didn't have any money to redo it. So the county lent them money, and they're paying us back over a long period of time. So those are the kind of things that can happen. Yeah. You know, I'm sure it's at a high interest rate, Greg. I'm sure it's very high. We're making a ton of money on that.
Recent discussions with public works staff, sounds that was very productive. Did they indicate any idea of when they might approach the Board of Supervisors with this project and options relative to that, so they can seek direction from the board?
It's my understanding that Josh is kind of continually presenting in front of the board about his ideas, and I'm not sure if the board's given direction to clean up
But he's brought it to us a couple different times. As far as giving direction, the only thing we have said is to work with LAFCO, work with
Yeah.
to dissolve as many as we can, just kind of, you know, 30,000 foot discussions. So nothing actually written in paper or anything like that, but if we could get something going on.
Yes,
would.
if this next big move that they could potentially make to sort of combine like districts, perhaps starting with lighting districts,
Mhm.
a countywide one CSA that if you annex into it, you pay a parcel assessment for the lighting service. That could potentially be one CSA that serves all of the county, and then we would take away that power from the other CSAs that also have lighting. And so that would be something, I think they were a little intimidated at first because it sounded like such a big project, but the reality is that it's a resolution adopted by the Board of Supervisors, and then it comes to us to sort of figure out the fine details. And so they were encouraged to know that it's really not as intimidating as it needed to be.
What I'm thinking is that it might be helpful if your public works director was to come to you and your fellow board members and just present one example of a CSA dissolution and combination of like you're
Yeah.
sharing, Shannon, just so if they get positive direction from the board to go ahead and pursue that, then the experience of that alone might be enough to, pay off dividends for other similar
future. Yeah.
actions.
Like that. I like that idea. Yeah.
Mhm.
Is it Ridley Pool considered a CSA?
Mhm.
It is. But very much underfunded. Yeah, yeah. As are many of them.
Maybe that would be.
And try to get it.
Example we can look at.
Yeah, that would be a nice one.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's one that we, I think, review in our Park and Rec municipal service reviews, and we hope to pursue that soon. And so we can take a look at that CSA when we review all of our other park districts.
I know we've been working on it for years. I remember other supervisors that were brought into meetings, and it's just a big people don't quite understand that it's underfunded.
Mhm.
And you look at the numbers, it's way underfunded. And it's right next to a school property. There might be some partnerships or something, whatever, to work things out. It needs to be addressed though.
Yep,
'cause a
that's
lot
one
of
we need
things
to
are
get the
going-
community. That's a hard one to get the community behind, but yeah, something we
And
need to
like-
talk about. Good
Like
point.
we've brought up before, we have our very robust CSA MSR that outlines in detail the steps moving forward to bring some of these CSAs up in funding, and identifies partnerships and things that we could be doing. So it's just a matter of the staff and the effort behind implementing those recommendations.
I would just give you a larger concept here, which is I think really valuable, is that this process is actually, as much as it's taking time to work through, it's actually working. We developed the MSR, we did the review. Mr. Betts wrote an incredible document for them, and they are now using that as their Bible in a sense to track how they move through the CSAs and prioritize how to reorganize. And so the process is doing exactly what it should. LAFCO looks at something, determines it's deficient in some way. That then gets transmitted to the agency who we're reviewing. They can take that information and turn it into some actionable things, projects. And that's exactly what's happening. It's taking a while to get there. But I can't reinforce enough that in the years that I've been here, staff at Public Works working with CSAs has hopscotched all over the place. And this is the first time in my 30 years that they have really just dedicated a couple people to dealing with this. So I don't know if that's pressure from the board or it's just better leadership. I don't know what it is, but it should be noted that they are for the first time taking this really seriously, and this process is working. We identified it, and rather than some agencies that like to maybe push back on what we say, they've embraced it. And they've used it, and we're gonna get to a solution, and I expect within a year or so, we'll be back in front of you with some action initiated by the Board of Supervisors to do this. So I want you this is a gold star for everybody involved in this process. It's a process that's working. It's just taking time because everything in government takes time. So hey, that's all I got on that.
Great. Okay. Anything else? Any other?
Just real quick, I'll run through the rest of this.
Yeah.
Staff workshop for LAFCO coming up in April 21, 24. Shannon has done a great job organizing 2 sessions. So she will be very busy out there at workshop. Moving on to legislation, 2 bills, and I provided you the letters in your packet of support. One of them was the indemnification bill, Senate Bill 1209. Mr. Brown was instrumental in helping pull this together, but the reality, that bill is moving forward. We have an author. There's some issues right now that we're working through, as with every bill, but the reality is we're going to end up with some sort of indemnification language that affects LAFCOs directly, and that's what our goal was. So I'll keep you informed on that, but that process is moving forward. And AB 33277 is what we call the omnibus bill, which is just everybody throws something into the kitchen sink that they want, and it's supposed to be non-controversial. And in this particular case, it's how dealing with ad valorem property taxes on new formations. I don't want to get into the details of that because it didn't really affect us. This is a bill that came out of Los Angeles County. Nonetheless, we wrote a letter of support because it's a Cal LAFCO supported bill. And for you that don't remember, I'll just read real quick. the commission has authorized me to respond to these because often we get these emails come in at some of you know this from your staff. You'll get these emails come in a day or two in advance of a public hearing and say, quickly, can everybody write a letter of support and get it up into the legislative portal, which we do. But unfortunately, that doesn't mean we can get it in front of you because so usually what the commission has directed me in the past is talk to the chair and I talk to Mr. Connolly about these and then subsequently I write the letters and then I provide them to you and you either say good job or slap me, one of the two. But I'm going to come back with policy related to that at a later date in our bylaws about to verify and how that works. So anyhow, that's the two bills moving forward. The one on 56133, which is service extensions outside of an agency's boundaries. I think that probably for all effective purposes is now dead. We just cannot get a coalition of folks behind saying definitively that it's a LAFCO decision to make as to whether something is exempt from that particular legislation. It's been going on for 10 years. It's frustrating, but nonetheless, I think we're at a point where we just can't seem to pull enough folks together to support it. Doesn't change what we do internally here in Butte LAFCO. We may end up with a policy that it is derived from this legislation, local policy that allows us to say that. But other than that, application activity, you can see what that is. And I don't think there's anything else. Mr. Brown, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I mean, we're probably, for policy at the local level, in the view of the fact that we won't be legislation. We really think it's important. The decision-making authority over whether some extension of services is rather than let. Agreed.
That's all I have for you.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, correspondence, just what you had in there, okay. Looks like that's our meeting. Adjourn, thank you for attending.
Well done.
Thank you.